guys, it's Lindsay. Welcome back to The Wandering Reader. Today I'm going to be doing my December wrap up. But before we get started with all of the books that I read in December, I have two things that I want to talk to you about. The first of those is that this week I went over 1,000 subscribers on my channel. I think it was on Tuesday or Wednesday, so it would have been the 2nd or the 3rd of January. I woke up, I had a little check of things and I realised that I'd gone over 1,000 subscribers, and I could not have been more happy. It means so much to me that people are watching my videos, they like my content, they've subscribed to my channel to watch new things that I put up. So I just wanted to say a big thank you to each and every one of you for supporting me over the last year. And what I'm going to be doing is a Q&A to celebrate 1,000 subscribers. So I was having a little think about what I could do to celebrate, and I thought, what better way for you to get to know me a little bit better than to ask me some questions that you've been meaning to ask me, or that you really want to know the answers to, and I will answer them in an upcoming video. So what I want to ask you to do in the comments of this video, as well as commenting on anything obviously that I've read in December, is leave me some questions that you have down below too. So what I'll be doing is I'll be collating all of those questions over the next sort of 2 or 3 weeks maybe, and then later on down the line, perhaps towards the end of January, I will be filming a Q&A video where I will be answering some of those questions. So you can ask me bookish related things, you can ask me things about my life or things about Stefan, for those of you that have watched the couple of videos that he's featured in on my channel. Yeah, anything that you like. Yeah, so leave those in the comments down below, and like I said, I will collate those. And again, just wanted to say thank you so much. Like I said, I was so excited when I woke up, I think it was on the Wednesday morning, and realised that my channel had rolled over to 1,000 subscribers. Yeah, I find it really difficult to get my head around it. When I started my channel, it was late December of 2016. And I just never really had any sort of idea of where it would go, and these sort of big numbers that people pluck out of the air, they were sort of so arbitrary, and I didn't really think that I would ever get here, I suppose. But yeah, it just surprises me how quickly it's rolled over to 1,000 as well. So thank you to each and every one of you. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that my sister has a YouTube channel, and it's called Dreaded Fitness. And the reason I wanted to mention it now is because she's just started to put up fitness related videos on her channel. She's had her channel for a while, and she does videos about dreadlocks, she does videos about being vegan, and then sort of about her sort of alternative lifestyle, shall we say, in general. And then, like I said, she's just started putting fitness videos onto her channel. And for those of you that know me and know kind of how, well, I'd like to think of myself as down to earth and approachable, and that you can talk to me as you would do any sort of normal person, I suppose. She makes you feel really comfortable on her channel too, and she explains in the I think it's a leg workout that she's done first of all, that it's quite scary going to the gym and kind of not knowing what to do and finding it difficult to ask people for help. So her aim in her channel is to put up things that will help you to get more out of your sessions at the gym or with the stuff that you do at home. So I'll put a link to her channel down below, as well as that first video that she put up, and I hope you guys will go and check her out. She's got a great channel, and like I said, if you like me, then you'll like her. We are very different in terms of, yeah, you'll see when you go and check out her channel, but at the same time I think we have a lot of things in common too, and we're both really down to earth and really approachable. I think so anyway. You can let me know if that's not true. So yeah, please go and check out her channel. So in December I read a total of 9 books and 3,169 pages. I thought I would try something a little bit different out on my channel with my wrap-ups, and do some sort of statistics for you so you can see them on the screen. Let me know in the comments below whether that's something that you want me to continue. I quite like seeing the different things that I've read during the month. So you can see all of the different book lengths that I read this month. I read 3 of the authors that I read were male and 6 were female. I read 2 2017 releases and the rest were backlist books. And then I read 1 non-fiction, 2 YA, 1 classic and 5 literary or adult fiction books. Then I had quite an even spread of star ratings this month. I didn't rate any books 1 or 2 stars, which is really good. And I rated 3 books 5 stars, 3 books 4 stars and 3 books 3 stars. So as always, I'm going to do this in order of the books that I read during the month. So let's jump into the first book that I read in December. And the first book that I read in December was Another Day in the Death of America, and this is by Gary Young. I started reading this right at the end of November. It was one of my non-fiction November picks, but I didn't quite get around to finishing it, so I finished it off in the month of December. This is a book where Gary Young has researched 10 different young people that died due to gun crime or gun violence in the United States on one particular day, and each chapter is dedicated to the lives and the deaths of each of these 10 young people. So they range in age from sort of like 9 or 10 I think, all the way up to sort of 19 or 20. And like I said, each chapter is about each one of these people that died, these young people that died on this day. Some of the chapters are a bit more detailed when it comes to these young people's lives, what led up to the shootings, what their lives were like, what was the fallout like afterwards, and there are lots of quotes from their family members and their friends and things like that. And some of the chapters are a bit more sparse because the family members weren't particularly interested in talking to Gary Young about their child and kind of their life and what had happened, for a variety of different reasons. But what he does in those chapters is talk about different issues to do with gun violence and sort of issues surrounding that, like poverty and race and ethnicity and different things like that. And it was really, really interesting read. There were a lot of moments during this book where I could feel myself tearing up just because of the pure injustice of it all, and a lot of moments when I felt really, really frustrated about certain people's opinions when it came to gun crime and that the gun industry in America and the kind of reasons why some people want to keep that going. But most of all, I found it really informative and enlightening. A lot of the information in here I just didn't really have any idea about before, and I really felt like this taught me an awful lot. So I would really recommend this book to anybody who has an interest in gun laws in America, in gun crime and gun violence, and you know, we've heard about it so much on the news over the last decade or so, so I would really encourage you to pick it up for that reason, but also just because I think it's a really important topic and you learn so much about American culture and different issues in America, and indeed that filter over to different countries as well. So yeah, I gave that one 5 stars. The next book that I picked up in December was The Good People by Hannah Ken. I did a buddy read of this with Russell over at Ink and Paper blog, and I was really looking forward to picking this up because you guys will know that I absolutely love Burial Rights. In fact, it made my best books of 2017 list. If you haven't watched that video, I'll link it for you. So like I said, really, really interested in picking this one up. This is set in 1825 in rural Ireland, and it follows a particular family, and at the beginning of the book the husband dies of a heart attack and he's brought back to the house where his wife is, and you learn a little bit about their family situation. A few months ago their daughter died and they took in their grandson, who appears to have been born with some sort of an affliction, which means that he seemingly disabled. He can't talk, he can't walk, they have to do a lot of looking after. And one of the main characters is called Nora. She's the one whose husband has died and who has this grandson. She's kind of convinced that the reason that her grandson is like this isn't because that's the way he's been born and that's kind of it really. She believes that he's something called a changeling. And I didn't know what a changeling was until I read this book, but having obviously looked it up and done some research into it, a changeling is a fairy. So it's where a fairy inhabits the body of a human and the kind of human goes off and the fairy inhabits the body, if that kind of makes any sense. So because she believes that her grandson is a changeling, she employs the advice of a local sort of like, I don't know what to call her, she's sort of like a doctor but she's not a doctor, and she's kind of a woman of the earth as it were, and she knows all of these herbal remedies, and I can't, like a naturalist, no, naturalist is probably the wrong word, but you kind of know what I mean. And her name is Nance, and she kind of draws on her to ask whether she can do anything to get her grandson back. So the kind of novel goes through them trying to get the fairy out, get the changeling out. I did like this. I thought Hannah Kent's writing was brilliant as always. She can really write a character and a setting and allow you to imagine exactly what this place is like and exactly what these characters are like. The setting and the characters were really, really vivid, so I thought that was clever as always. But I did find that I wasn't as enraptured with the story as I was with Burial Rites. I kind of found myself, yeah, kind of a little bit bored at times. Yeah, so there was like quite a huge chunk, Russell and I discussed this, quite a huge chunk in the middle where we kind of thought that it was dragging a little bit and there wasn't really a lot going on, and yeah, that kind of thing. And then towards the end it picked back up again, and yeah, you could kind of see what she was doing with this. So I did like it overall, but I wasn't really enamoured by it, and I ended up giving this 3.5 stars. The next book that I picked up in December was The Heir by Kira Cass. This is book 4 in the Selection series, and so I'm not going to say too much about the plot obviously, but I've heard people say that they weren't as enamoured with books 4 and 5 in this series as they were with the rest of with the original trilogy, and I have to say I agree with that. This is told from the point of view of one of the sort of heirs, yeah, of the original kind of couple from the trilogy, and I just found her quite immature, quite whiny as a character. I didn't really connect with her that much, and I found it quite childish at times, which, you know, the other books I would describe as fluffy reads, you know, guilty pleasure reads, although, you know, you should never feel guilty about whatever you read, you just pick up whatever you like. But with this one I just kind of felt like it's a bit, yeah, it was okay. I am going to read the 5th book because I've got it downstairs and I just want to finish off the series now. And I kind of want to see what happens with the story, so I liked it enough to continue on. And yeah, I threw through it because obviously it's short, it's YA, and you know, there's nothing really substantial to it. But I didn't like this book as much as the original trilogy, and I gave this one 4 stars. Next up I read The Seven Sisters, and this is by Lucinda Riley. Again, I was reading this at the end of November and then I finished it off in December. This tells the story of a group of sisters who have all been adopted by their father, and at the beginning of the book the father has a heart attack and dies, and they're all called back to this sort of island where they all lived as children. And we're following one particular sister called Maya, and after they're called back to the island they all receive information about where they might have come from, where their father might have adopted them from, and we follow Maya's story as she starts to unravel where she's from. I really enjoyed this. They're quite chunky books, and I originally heard Jess from Jess McGlynn mention this on her channel and say that she, by the end of the book, she really liked it. I liked it all the way through. I thought the story and the characters were really well put together. I wasn't as enamoured by the dialogue in here, just found it a little bit unrealistic. But I could get past that because I was so invested in the story. This is, I think, going to be a 7-book series, and I have book 2 up on my shelf. So when I originally picked this up, I did think to myself, you have to like this a lot in order, you know, to be invested and to kind of go on with this series. And I did ending up liking it enough to continue on with it, and to be interested in what happens next. So like I said, I've got book 2 up on my shelf. I'm hoping to read that in 2018, and this one I gave 4 stars. The next book that I read was A Modest Proposal, and this is by Jonathan Swift. This is one of the Little Black Penguin classics that they brought out, and the reason I picked this one up is because there's a quotation from the essay at the front of Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale, and I'm rereading that and studying it at the moment with my year 13s. So I thought I would pick up this essay and read it just to kind of see what it was all about. There's more than just the essay in here. There's kind of, I think there's a poem in here, and then there's a couple of other essays that he's written. But obviously I was more interested in the essay Modest Proposal. I had literally no idea what it was about until I read this. But this is an essay that Jonathan Swift wrote, and it's a satirical essay all about what should be done to solve the poverty problem in Ireland in I think the 1700s. And yeah, it's quite funny at times. I did appreciate the essay, I appreciated where he was coming from. I think it's one to kind of get your teeth into a bit more if you're kind of doing some research on that particular era of history or that particular moment in time in Ireland, or him as a writer in general, which I don't kind of have that background. I wasn't necessarily going to dive into that. But yeah, the other bits and pieces in here weren't as engaging. There's an essay in the back, what's it called? An examination of certain abuses, corruptions and enormities in the city of Dublin, and I found that one a little bit boring and quite dragged a little bit, but there you go. This one I gave 3 stars. I didn't really know how to rate it, but I rated it just based on that essay, that one essay. I thought it was quite funny and engaging, so yeah, 3 stars. Next up in December I read Where'd You Go Bernadette, and this is by Maria Semple. I picked this up to complete the Continents Around the World challenge that I set myself in 2017, because I'd heard that part of this was set in Antarctica, and that was the only continent that I had left on my list to complete. So, but I had no idea going into this what this was about at all, but I really ended up enjoying this. This tells the story of Bernadette, and she lives in Seattle with her husband and her daughter. And her husband works for Microsoft, and her daughter goes to this sort of like elite private school that's close to their home. And at the beginning of the book it kind of centres around the kind of mums who go and pick their children up from this private school, and then you learn a lot more about Bernadette's life, and about kind of like the internal politics in the town, as it were, and things like that. And the family are planning this trip to Antarctica because the 15-year-old daughter Bea has been learning about it in school and really wants to go. So they plan this trip to go, I think, over Christmas. And it's sort of the lead up to that trip, but it's just about so much more than that. What I really enjoyed about it is that it's not told in prose, it's told in lots of different formats. So for example, in some places you get kind of emails like that, in other places you get, there's like a blog post there, and then there are various other formats, and there's a little bit of prose in the middle, and you're not aware really at the beginning who's telling that bit of the prose. You only get to learn that towards the end. But this is also about so much more than I anticipated. It's got a lot to do with mental health issues, it's got a lot to do with identity and losing yourself and then finding yourself again. I just found the story really quite charming. I ended up giving this one 4 stars in the end. Really enjoyed it, and I recently read somewhere that they're making this into a film in 2018 or 2019, so I'd be really interested to see how that is adapted. I finished off my reread of Northern Lights by Philip Pullman in December. I started reading this with my Year 7s in September, and I brought it home when I finished for Christmas because we hadn't got around to finishing it off. I think we're only about a third of the way through, something like that. It kind of sucks that that has to happen, but there we go. So I finished this. I kind of felt like I didn't remember an awful lot from the first time that I read it, and I don't know whether that's because I kind of skim read it or didn't read it properly, but yeah, there were things happening and I was just like, don't remember this at all. And that was, yeah, for a lot of the ending of the book really. So I'm really glad that I reread this. I ended up giving this one 4 stars too, and I will definitely be picking up books 2 and 3 in 2018, definitely book 2. And then the last 2 books that I've got to show you were books that appeared on my favourites list. So if you've watched that video, you'll know what these are. The first one of those is The Last Days of Cafe Leila, and this is by Donya Bijan. I won this in a giveaway that Russell was doing on his channel earlier in the year from Ink and Paper blog, and I'm so glad that he sent it to me. This tells the story of Noor, and she has recently split up from her husband, and she doesn't really know what to do with her life. She's sort of stuck in this, you know, period of not really knowing where to go. She's originally from Iran, and she writes to her father back home, and she decides that she's going to go and stay with her father in Iran, and she takes her daughter Lily with her, and Lily I think is about 15 in the book. Lily really doesn't want to go and fights against it, and they're having a bit of trouble with their relationship because of the divorce at the beginning of the book. So she goes back and she visits her father, and her father owns a restaurant or a cafe, I suppose, called Cafe Leila in their hometown in Tehran. And so she kind of falls back into this life that she left 20 or so years ago, and the writing was just so evocative. I loved all of the characters. I really liked the way that she structured the story. So a lot of the parts of the story is told from Noor's point of view, but you also get to see the points of view of other characters like Lily and her father, and you delve back into their pasts and what has brought them to this particular moment in time, and I really appreciated that way of structuring it. I thought it dealt with a lot of really good issues like identity and race and class, and you know, finding out who you are, and this idea of, you know, is who you are defined by the people that you're with or the relationships that you have, and yeah, all of those kinds of things. It was just brilliant, and the writing was great, and I can't wait to see what she brings out next, and I gave this one 5 stars. And then the last book that I read in December and I'm absolutely in love with, and it is Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. Love this book. I heard Lisa from Books and Smiles and Amanda from Cook Read Create both talk about this on their channels in 2017, so I knew I really wanted to read it, and then I bought a copy of it, I think in November, and I thought I'd put it on my December TBR because I'm really looking forward to reading it, and I'm so glad I did. This tells the story of Eleanor, and she is a woman who very much sticks to her routine. So she goes to work 5 days a week. On a Friday she goes to Marks and Spencer's and she buys a margarita pizza, a bottle of white wine and 2 litre bottles of vodka, and goes home, eats the pizza and drinks all of the stuff that she's bought over the course of the weekend. She doesn't really have any friends, she doesn't socialise or talk to anybody really. She is very isolated in her world, and one day something happens to kind of bring her out of that, or that sparks her beginning to come out of that. She witnesses an old man collapse, and together with one of her co-workers she helps to get him into an ambulance and kind of goes to visit him in hospital and things like that, and then her life and her world starts to open up. What I really liked about the writing in this is that Gail Honeyman, she drops these sort of hints in very early on of things to do with Eleanor and her life and her past that you're just kind of itching to know what happens. I absolutely love Eleanor as a character. I really enjoyed the story and the way it was put together, and yeah, I just really appreciated this. Absolutely loved it, and again, this is Gail Honeyman's debut novel, so really excited to see what she comes out with next. And I think the film rights to this have been bought as well, so I'll be interested to see how it translates on screen. So there we go guys, they were all the books I read in December. I'd love to have a chat with you in the comments below. Have you read any of these? What did you think of them? Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.